Everyone, at this time, I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Zoning Board of Appeals meeting to order.
Regularly scheduled zoning board of appeals meeting to order. Regularly scheduled zoning board of appeals meeting.
We can have everyone just mute their phones. That would be great.
Okay, take two. As a preliminary matter, this is Zoning Board of Appeals Chairman Stephen Sepisi speaking. Before we get started, I would ask that anyone joining us remotely, please be patient and respectful as we navigate the meeting remotely. Okay, as we navigate the meeting remotely. I would appreciate if you would each mute your phones. Thank you. For those wishing to follow along with the PowerPoint presentation, you are encouraged to access the meeting through Tinley Park Television on the YouTube. It is my understanding that all members and staff present have checked in on the conference line, and we can begin our meeting. Please note, throughout the meeting, we expect to have other individuals joining us via phone pertaining to specific agenda items. Again, thank you in advance for your patience and cooperation through tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, which is convening remotely via conference call. This meeting is conducted pursuant to Governor Pritzker's Disaster Proclamation and Public Act 101-0640, which amend requirements of the Open Meeting Act due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Open Meetings Act, OMA, requires public bodies allow for public comment. Therefore, this meeting will include public comment via the established protocol. Even if members of the public do not provide comment, participants are advised that people may be listening who do not provide comment, and those persons are not required to identify themselves. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by web audio conference. As far as the meeting ground rules go, we are getting used to working and meeting remotely, so I do not feel it is necessary to go over the protocols again. Please just remember to wait until I address you, and please keep your phones muted when not speaking. Thank you. Madam Secretary, would you take the roll, please?
Pass check.
Here remotely.
Vargas. Bettenhausen.
Attending remotely.
Truxell.
Attending remotely.
Merrick.
Attending remotely.
Chairman Sepisi.
In person. Before we go any further, I'd like to welcome Mr. Truxell and Mr. Merrick to our commission. We've been waiting a long time to fill a couple positions, and we're very, very happy that you're here with us. Certainly, if you have any questions about the procedures and how we do it, we'll have a section at the end of the meeting, and you are more than welcome to ask your questions. If you think of them after the meeting is over, you can email one of us. We can certainly have a chat about anything. So welcome, and we're sure glad you're here. All right. So, let's see. Are there any communications for the commission that we have? Nothing? Do you have anything, Dan?
Nope.
No?
That's it.
Okay. Let's begin with the approval of the minutes of the last meeting we had. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 12th, 2020 meeting?
Commissioner Poschek, so moved.
Okay, may I have a second?
Commissioner Bettenhausen, second the motion.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a voice vote. Are there any opposed to this motion? Okay, hearing none, that motion is carried. We're now going to move on to item 1 of our public hearing for the residents at 6350 West 181st Street, up Christine Auberge fence variation. Now, this evening, we have a public hearing requested by the petitioner, Ms. Christine Auberge, for a variation from Section 3.J of the zoning code, fence regulations, at a property located at 6350 West 181st Street in the R2 Single Family Residential Zoning District. This variation would permit the petitioner to install a 6-foot-high, solid privacy fence to encroach 24 feet into the required secondary front yard located on the west property line. Before we proceed, I'd like to note that I have confirmation, and I'll show it for the cameras, of the public notice of the hearing that was in the newspaper as required by the state law. May I have a motion to open the meeting, please? Commissioner Bentonhausen, would you like to open the meeting?
Commissioner Bettenhausen, so moved.
Commissioner Poschek, I second that motion.
Okay, motion's been made by Commissioner Bentonhausen, seconded by Commissioner Paschek. I'll ask for a voice vote. Are there any opposed to this motion? Hearing none, motion is carried. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in before you speak after staff presentation. So staff, Dan, if you'd like to go ahead and proceed, we'll go ahead and listen in.
Sure. And my apologies, that was a typo on the script. It's 30 feet into the required secondary front yard, not 24 feet. So that was.
Okay, so it's actually 30 feet. Did everybody get that correction?
Yeah. So that's what the request is here. The request is here today. This is basically stemming from an existing fence that's out there. I believe it's a 4-foot chain link fence that was damaged in a storm. It's a non-conforming fence that's out there now, and they're looking to replace it here, which requires a variation for what they're requesting. So, first on the screen is just kind of a front shot of the house, and the first thing you'll kind of notice with this property is it's fairly unique in that it's angled. It's angled on the lot itself, so it's angled towards the intersection and not kind of one street or the other as you'll typically get on properties. But occasionally you get these on corner lots, especially if they have a little larger lot. Sometimes they kind of like to angle them towards the streets. It creates a kind of unique look, but it does create, you'll see some kind of challenging situations with fences and yards and things like that. So corner lots, as we'll get into here, and as you guys, many of you have seen before, are challenging. This makes it even kind of additionally challenging for them here. So as a background on this property, the property is located on the northeast corner of Ridgeland and 181st Street. It's in the Ridgeland Avenue Estate subdivision. This is a fairly unique subdivision. If you go out there, it's obviously been developed in the county. You can kind of tell it's swales without sidewalks. And one kind of unique thing is when you get these areas that were developed originally in the county is you get a lot of non-conforming situations. Cook County tends to not regulate stuff very well, and they tend to not require permits or kind of really even do inspections. So a lot of times you can get stuff done without permits, even when it was in the county. And then in general, they have different regulations as well for their zoning districts. So we get some non-conforming setbacks with the homes as well as the fences. So out here, it's mostly in the village, but I'd say it's probably 60-40. The lots have kind of come in one by one as they need water and sewer utilities. Or as they just want village services or redevelop, they tend to go from the county jurisdiction and then they annex into the village. So this is one of those as well, as many of these are that were kind of originally developed in the county and then came into the village after the fact. So it's a fairly large corner lot here. It's 20,100 square feet and 141 feet in width, so that well exceeds kind of the minimum zoning requirements here, which is in the R2 zoning district. And again, the property currently has a chain link fence. The one along Ridgeland that they're here to request today is the one that was damaged and they're looking to replace. And then they also have a chain link fence that runs in their primary front yard along 181st Street. That goes into the front yard, but not all the way to the property line. So that is what they're here today to request. And here is a picture, and as we'll kind of get into here, and as a big part of their request is to the north of them is the Kingdom Hall of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Church house of worship, and that has a parking lot that's adjacent to this property as well. So you can kind of start to see that here on the east side of the photo is the subject property, and the fence that's there. This is taken from Google Street View, so the fence is down now. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a chain link fence there on the east side of this photo. And then to the west side is that Jehovah's Witness location, just to the north of the property. From a zoning standpoint, this is R2 single-family residential. To the east is also R2 single-family residential, and that is a single-family home. To the west, across Ridgeland Avenue is zoned R4, and that is also single-family homes. Sorry, that says west, that is supposed to say south, is R3, and that's the Yankee Woods Forest Preserve to the south of the subject property. And as the petitioner noted in their application, and as part of the reason for wanting the height fence that they have is there is kind of a significant coyote population that lives in that forest preserve directly adjacent to them. And then to the north is kind of the property that probably is most significant in terms of why they're looking to put the fence where it is, and that's the Jehovah's Witness hall, which is a house of worship, and then has a parking lot that runs along this property line. I believe that Jehovah's Witness location was originally constructed as a home, and then I'm not sure if it was converted to a Jehovah's Witness either in the village or if it was in the county and then came into the village. Either way, they are permitted uses as long as they meet parking requirements, churches and houses of worship in residential districts. But in situations like this, you can see it brings some kind of challenging situations because they bring traffic. They do kind of have some challenges there when you put them next to single family or residential areas. And then here's another perspective you can kind of see there. That's the one-way entrance into the Jehovah's Witness property. That Jehovah's Witness property has a 6-foot high privacy fence that goes up to the property line, and that's where they're looking, the petitioner is looking to tie in their fence going south. So they're trying to basically meet where that one ends and run it to the south. And then you can see the purple arrow there pointing to the petitioner's existing fence line. I always go over this, even when it's been our usual board members here, but I think today with especially 2 new board members, this is kind of my little soapbox for corner fences, and we have a lot of these, and it's because they're fairly unique and hard to regulate and draw up a code that kind of addresses all situations here. It's kind of a competing between aesthetics, safety, and then obviously wanting to be able to fence in your yard as well. So there's kind of all those competing interests. You'd think there would be kind of a code that would take care of all those situations, but I haven't seen a single community perfectly deal with this situation. So it is fairly unique and in terms of what the codes are, and then also requesting a variation from the code requirements. So in 2018, I believe we had done and it was right before I had gotten here at the village, we did a kind of comprehensive overhaul of these fence regulations. And so what that did was kind of make this a little simpler, a little more uniform, and the hope was to kind of avoid confusion and avoid variations as much as possible. But still with corner fences, it's tough. So the code requirements basically require that a fence is it has to, on a corner fence, you have a primary front yard, which is the kind of front of the house, and then you have a secondary front yard, which is kind of that secondary street. And so on a secondary front yard and a front yard, you basically have to stop the fence at the required setback line. So in R4, it's 25 feet, and in R2 here, it's 30 feet. So unless the existing home has a non-conforming setback, meaning it's set into that required setback, then they're allowed to bring the fence up to that setback line. Outside of that, we basically have one alternative path to an administrative kind of variance that allows it to encroach 10 feet into whatever that setback is. So that if it's 25 feet, you'd be 15 feet from the property line. If it's a 30-foot setback, as it is here, it would be 20 feet from the property line. But you can only do that if it's a maximum 5-foot tall fence and that it's a 50% open fence. So you can't do a privacy, and 50% open can be, you'll see kind of the aluminum wrought iron fences or a picket style fence, chain link fence. There's quite a few options there for how you can get to basically 50% open fences. And so that's really to say, we'll give you 10 feet, but it's got to be a little less domineering in terms of how it looks, and it's maybe not as tall as you would have a normal fence be. And then lastly, if we do that, it obviously can't obstruct any sight lines or have any safety concerns. So anything outside of that is what requires a variation, and those are unique in that you basically need to have a hardship related to the property by state statute, meaning that, and that has to be related to the physical property. So it's saying, how is this property unique to every other property? Not just a kind of personal hardship that you almost start feeling like you'd play favorites. It has to be related to the property, the house, the property layout, the topography, something there that says this has some special considerations to why it shouldn't just meet the regular code. So with that being said, being a corner lot is not a hardship because the code is written specifically for corner lots. So just saying I want more yard space wouldn't be a hardship. It would have to be something that's kind of truly unique. And then again, those kind of personal conveniences, well, we understand oftentimes that is what's kind of driving it. Those don't really fall under that state statute requirement either. So kids, dogs, just kind of preferences for yard space. Well, we understand that. That doesn't really constitute why we can give special treatment to one property over others. And so lastly, this is just an example on the screen of kind of corner fences in general and why they're so hard to regulate. As you can kind of see all the different lot possibilities there. Sometimes secondary front yards can back up to a neighbor's primary front yard. Other times it can just back up to a street if it's a through lot. So there's a lot of different situations that come up with these, and that's kind of why in these situations they come before you guys. Again, you got to think about kind of the neighboring properties, how it relates to those. If this Jehovah's Witness property was a home, this obviously might be a different consideration compared to it being a church with a parking lot there. A lot of people wouldn't want a fence kind of going all the way into their front yard if it was their neighbor's fence. So this is just an example of, you can kind of see all those different lot layouts and setups that can happen. So getting into the petitioner's variation request now is they are looking to do a 6-foot high solid privacy fence that would replace the damaged 4-foot chain link fence. They're looking for a wood fence located on the property line along Ridgeland Avenue. And it would start, again, at that church's corner fence line. They're looking for this again, because Ridgeland Avenue is a fairly heavily trafficked street, and even though it's only one lane each direction, it's still fairly high speed. I think it's 35 or 40 miles per hour through there, but 40, I believe, and I would probably bet to say most people drive over that just from having lived out there. So they have that, as well as the church traffic. Obviously, it's somewhat minor in that it's only maybe one day a week or once in a while. And right now, there's not as much traffic, but that is, when they have events, when they have gatherings there, it can be significant coming there and when it lets out. So again, there's kind of an odd house layout here on an angle that you'll kind of see. It actually kind of helps the situation because it moves the fence actually further away from the intersection, but it does create a kind of smaller backyard space for them that they're trying to make up for. And then again, there is the administrative approval allowance, but that would leave 20 feet basically on the outside of the fence, and then it would also leave 20 feet of the Jehovah's Witness fence kind of sticking out from there. It would look fairly odd. So that's the petitioner's kind of explanation as to why they're looking for a variance here. And then here is kind of that layout, what we're going to be talking about. The orange on this is going to be new fencing that they're proposing. And then on the left side of this, the west side of their lot, is really where that variation comes into play, and that's their secondary front yard, which is along Ridgeland Avenue. There is an existing fence that is along 181st Street. That's also a chain link fence, and that goes into what's considered their primary front yard. That one staff has a little bit more concern about in terms of kind of how this property goes forward. The petitioner, in talking with them, kind of realizes that too. They've agreed they want to take it down, but they're looking basically for some time to either take it down themselves or obtain the money to take it down. So with this variation, staff has recommended basically one condition that would say give them 2 years to basically remove that fence. And because you're granting a variation for one front yard, I think it pretty directly relates to you wouldn't want 2 front yard fences, and this is one way to kind of help correct that out there. And that primary front yard fence is a little bit more significant since 181st Street is a little more residential, a little more quiet compared to Ridgeland. So again, the petitioner had agreed they plan on taking that down, and that's why they're running the new fence on that side of the property, so they can take it down and their property is still fenced in when they do that. They're just looking for a little bit of time to be able to get that done.
Are you complete?
Yes, I believe that's everything. I'll note, I did have one other typo in the staff report that basically said the new fence they're proposing goes to the back corner of their house, but it does go to their front corner. The front corner of the house, but it really, because of the angle of the house there, it sets it very far back from that intersection. So one thing that we usually do an analysis of, and we did do it here, is really to look at the sight lines from the intersection, from the stop signs, to make sure any vehicles at that intersection can see clearly. This one is more than outside of that clear vision triangle, so we didn't really show it here because it's normally only 30 feet, but that fence is going to be set back more than 70 feet. So it very clearly does that, and that's actually because of the angle of the house, where if that house was actually pushed up closer to 181st Street, that fence would actually end up getting closer to the intersection and then could maybe impede sight lines. But in this layout, in this situation, we don't really see any. Additionally, we look at sight lines from like driveways. So the driveway to the north of this, that is the Jehovah's Witness, is an entrance driveway there too. And that fence line is existing. So the fence already would block any views that was approved there previously. And then, so this fence doesn't add any additional blockage, but it's actually an entrance, so there really is no visibility concerns there. If it was an exit, then you might have a little more concern about them exiting. So, but that is on the other side of the Jehovah's Witness property to the north. So that is it for the staff report, so I'll give it back to you, Chairman.
Okay,
And
before we take any more steps, we're hearing a little bit of background noise. I think maybe someone doesn't have their phone or unit muted. If everyone could check one more time and see, because we're getting some banging around and things. I haven't heard anybody order drinks yet or anything like that, but it's there and it might become a problem. Having said that, we're going to go through with the commissioners right now because I want to see if anyone has any questions or discussion points for Dan. And we'll start with Commissioner Paschik.
Yes, I have one question. In the proposed backyard, if it gets enclosed, are there any utility poles, or will the Commonwealth Edison or the phone company need access to that yard?
I'm not sure. The petitioner is on the line, so she can maybe clarify that when we get to her. I do know, though, we will catch that with the permit, in that if there are any, they either have to have a gate that allows access, or they have to have a removable panel, so that way we can get back there to get utilities. So we will check that with the building permit and make sure.
Okay, and the second question is, their fence will abut the Jehovah's Witnesses, right? So there'll be no distance between the two fences.
Correct. They're not running a fence next to that Jehovah's Witness fence. They're just tying into it, so they're not doing back-to-back fences here.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Commissioner Bentenhausen.
Commissioner Battenhausen, can you hear me?
We can hear you, sir.
I can't hear you. That's why I'm calling. Yes, asking.
We can hear you.
Okay, good. I did have a question, and it's kind of off the wall, but is there any validity or thought about running the fence to the northwest corner from the corner of the front of the house on a diagonal, and doing the same on the other side of the house, and just completing a whole diagonal line across the front of the building with building fence to the corners of the house, to the corners of the lot? It's just a thought. It's kind of off the wall, but I'm looking at the picture going, just run it all the way to the corners. And a diagonal, the front of the whole front of the elevation of the house.
Sure.
Is that something I can reply to?
That's the petitioner. If you want,
Yes.
the chairman
Ms.
will have to
Ms.
swear
Abage,
you
if
in.
you want to go ahead and reply to that, you feel free to go.
Okay.
Do you want to swear her in?
Oh, yeah, you know what? We do need to swear you in before you start, so if you would please repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that the testimony given to this commission will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. And I do
voluntarily swear that all the information I'm going to give to this committee is the truth and nothing but the truth.
And that's sufficient. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Okay, so two things. One, the fence that I'm looking to replace, it's already there. Now, it has come down because of those storms we had in August. So as far as the utilities were concerned, because that was a question, this runs on the west side of the utility poles. On the one picture, you can actually see the telephone pole, and it's kind of slanting up. It runs just past that, and then all the utilities are on the outside of the fence. So I'm not doing anything new. I'm just putting this fence up where the old one used to be. As far as running on a diagonal, if you did that, I'd have no, there would be no yard in the back, and I'd have to take down all those trees because the yard would be gone. My garden would go away. All of that would disappear, and it would cut into my yard by like probably 30, 40 feet. So aesthetically, it wouldn't look right, because then that back corner, I'd have a little triangle that wouldn't work. I'd have to take down the swing set. I'd have to remove a bunch of trees. That would be very difficult to do.
Okay. Commissioner Paschik and Commissioner Bettenhausen, does that satisfy your questions?
Yes, it does, Commissioner Poshchek.
Commissioner Badenhausen, yes, it satisfies. I understand.
Okay. Well, very good. As we go on, once again, I'd like to welcome Commissioner Truxell. Do you have any questions or comments for staff?
No, I think the only question I have is when I look at the picture, or it's actually a plat where you have the gold and the purple lines and the blue lines, the existing fence to remain, there's a 2-year limit on that, or that's what we're negotiating here, I guess. But is all the chain link fence going away in 2 years?
No, well, all we're recommending is, so what's purple on there where it says existing fence to remain, that gets to basically remain. On the north side is the Jehovah's Witness, I think technically owns that fence, and that'll stay. And then on the east side, that'll stay except for where it turns blue. That's what we're looking to basically have removed within the next 2 years. And that's the part that kind of goes into their main.
The existing fence to remain, is that chain link, the existing fence to remain?
I think the east side is. I'll let the north side isn't. That one's a privacy fence.
Right.
The east side, I'm not sure. Christine can probably answer that.
Yeah, my plan is once where the orange lines are, once that's up, I plan on taking it down, but the quotes I've had are ridiculous. People want like $2,000 to do it, but I absolutely want to get rid of it. It's an eyesore. I can't stand it. I'm just trying to figure out the most economical way to do it.
Okay, understood. I was just curious more than anything if that was chain link that remains after you finish with the new 6 foot. And it's all wood, right? Wood cedar is the plan?
It's all wood. So the purple that you see there is all wood cedar, all relative to the east side. That neighbor put it up last year. Jehovah's Witness put it up, I want to say 2 years ago. The orange is going to be all cedar, except for the portion on the west side of the property where that blue chain link is already, that short little run. Yeah. I'm going to do that in aluminum so that you can see through, because my office is in that corner and I don't want to be staring at a fence the whole time. So that will be aluminum. All right.
Understood. Thank you very much. That was my only question. No concern. Just more question. That's all.
Okay. Commissioner Merrick, again, welcome. Do you have any questions or comments for staff?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Really good. All right. All right, let's see. 1 second here, please. Trying to go through my little script here and everything. All right. Now, Ms. Obej, this is your portion now to add any information that you want to add to this. Perhaps there's mitigating circumstances you want to discuss or anything, but this is your time if you'd like to use it.
No, I think, I've answered the questions. The biggest problem, quite honestly, is the church, especially with COVID. They're not in right now, but when they are in, they're there Wednesday nights and on weekends. And when those people are coming in the lots, I get a line down Ridgeland, and our bedrooms are right on Ridgeland, and it's a mess. And I'd like to have the privacy fence so we don't have to look at it all the time. It's bad enough we have to hear it all the time, but there's nothing I can do about that. As mentioned, we now have coyote and deer that are going to be very upset when this fence goes up, but, at least my kid can go outside again. And I guess it's really, not that matters, but there's just a lot that happens over on this intersection, and it's needed.
Okay.
And it's just replacing what I have now. And I used to have trees over there, but that storm knocked out the majority of them.
That's sad. Well, let me speak first. I share your disdain for the noise on Ridgeland. I live actually a full 2 blocks away, and I can hear cars on Ridgeland at night. So I understand where you're coming from there, and the coyotes and the deer. Once in a blue moon, we get a deer, but we get a lot of coyotes on my property, too. However, now, commissioners, are there any questions for Ms. Sobash, for Christine? Commissioner Paschik, any questions?
No questions, Commissioner Pashuk.
Okay, Commissioner Bentonhausen, any questions?
Commissioner Bettenhausen has no questions.
Commissioner Truxell, do you have any questions?
Commissioner Truxell, no questions?
And Commissioner Merrick, do you have any questions?
Commissioner Merrick, no questions.
Okay. So having no further discussion on this matter, I will entertain a motion to close the hearing, the public hearing.
Commissioner Bettenhausen, so moved to close the hearing.
Okay.
Commissioner Pashuk, I second the motion.
Okay, then let's ask for a voice vote, and is there anybody opposed to this motion? Hearing none, may I have a motion on the proposed variation?
Sorry, we'll go through.
Commissioner
the standard.
Bettenhausen,
Oh, one second, I'm
Sorry.
sorry, I skipped something. What did I do?
So we'll go through the standards really quick.
Oh, you know what, we're gonna go through the standards for this, because, especially when we got 2 new gentlemen here.
So, for everyone's background that hasn't been through this before, is basically there's 3 state statute required standards that need to be met if you're going to grant a variation. And then within our code, we also have a list of kind of other considerations you as a board should consider when considering a variation or consider granting one. And again, you guys are a recommending body, but just for that vote, what you guys would need to consider. So the first variation is that the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it's allowed. In all honesty, this is the hardest one to meet out of any of these. And again, we say here that conformance with the code limits the amount of rear yard space that's already reduced due to the unique sitting of the home on the lot, and that the proposed fence is consistent with the adjacent fence setback along Ridgeland Avenue and doesn't result in any sightline issues. The second standard is that the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances, and this is kind of where the hardship comes into play very specifically, is that there needs to be a hardship related to the property. And so this is more related to the overall development of the lot being unique here in regards to the yards, as well as the adjacent parking lot and house of worship that's to the north of it. Also, again, the home being placed on an angle and how that relates to the yard space here on the lot. The third standard for a variation that's required by state statute is that if granted, it doesn't alter the essential character of the locality. And again, this is due to there's a fairly unique development pattern out there in regards to the property to the north being a church, house of worship, and that this basically ties into kind of the rest of the neighborhood's aesthetics out there, which are some non-conforming situations, also some other variations that have been approved. And there's been minimized kind of negative visual impacts there in the neighborhood. And then so outside of those, we kind of have these other 3 that we don't have very specific responses to, but that you guys should consider, including how the property is unique in regards to its shape, topographical grades, things like that. And some of these come more into play with a structure variation in regards to setbacks, maybe not as much for a fence, but these are some things you guys should consider as well. So that's it for the standards.
Okay, would there be any questions or discussion about those standards before we push to a motion? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion regarding this variation proposal.
Commissioner Badenhausen, I make a motion to recommend to the village board grant a 30-foot variation to the petitioner, Christine Obaji, from section Roman numeral 3.J. Fence regulations of the zoning ordinance to permit a 6-foot high privacy fence to be located on the west property line and encroach 30 feet into the required secondary front yard, where a fence encroachment is not permitted at 6350 191st Street in the R2 single-family residential zoning district, consistent with the list of submitted plans and adopted findings of fact as proposed by village staff in the January 14, 2021 staff report, subject to the following condition: that the non-conforming fence located in the required primary front yard along 181st Street shall be removed within 2 years of approval by the village board, I assume. Yes.
Okay, is there a second on the motion?
Commissioner Poshchek, I second the motion.
Okay, the motion was made by Commissioner Benthausen and seconded by Commissioner Paschek. Madam Secretary, may we have a roll call, please?
Merrick? Commissioner
Aye, in favor.
Truxell?
Aye.
Bettenhausen?
Aye, Commissioner Badenhausen. Aye.
Poshchek?
Commissioner Poshchek, yes.
Chairman Subbasi?
Aye. Okay, the motion appears to have been carried and carried unanimously. So, Christine, if I may, I will congratulate you on that portion and let you know that the next step, and probably the final step in this process, will be for the village board to decide and grant you the variation, and that meeting will be on Tuesday, the 26th of January. You need not be present there. You are welcome to be present there or to call in case anyone has any questions in that.
It'll
What'll
be
happen
the,
is- I'm
sorry, 26, so it
The
did
26th,
get
yeah.
changed to the 26th. Oh,
Yeah.
did it?
Yeah,
Okay.
so, the commissioners will, or the village board members will read your motion and act on it at that time, so that, pending, or with approval, you'll be able to proceed with your project, post haste.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're more than welcome. You're welcome to sit in on the rest of the meeting, but there's not a whole lot. There's a little, maybe what we might consider boring things, but congratulations and have a great evening otherwise.
Thank you, you too. Goodbye. Happy New Year.
Bye now. Happy New Year.
You too.
Okay. Staff, do you have any comments for the good of the order?
I do not. Welcome to the two new commissioners, or board members. We kind of threw them into the fire here today, so if you guys have questions, reach out to us. Barb will be probably sending you some information on the meetings and everything else, but we'll try and go through stuff in detail as we do with most of these anyways, but if you guys have questions about the zoning code or process or anything like that, as with the rest of the board too, always feel free to reach out to us. So besides that, I'll just note Gas and Wash and Do Right Donuts is open on 183rd, so that project is complete for the gas station and the restaurant side. So pretty good donuts, pretty good chicken as well there. A little expensive, but I think they're worth it. And then they're working on the gas station portion of that as well, which should be done next year. And then in the downtown, we of course have South Street and the Boulevard moving along, so that every day looks a lot more like a finished building coming together there. And then if you guys kind of track the board meetings, there is a restaurant that we've identified that includes some of the management from the Dancing Marlin. So he's looking to do a fairly nice Italian tapas style, so kind of smaller plates, but it'll be Italian-oriented food there. So he's even looking to hire a consultant for the build-out and that overall design. So we're excited to see kind of that really nice restaurant go into that corner space there and occupy it. And then also looking forward to the spring and having residents move in there and have it be for lease. So besides that, Avocado Theory is the restaurant that's just north of Ed and Joe's. And that is well underway as well there too. And so they have, from the beginning, always built in a nice large patio to that. So if you're in COVID times, I think that's going to be a really cool space there where they have garage doors that roll up. And so they'll be on a covered patio out there eating your avocado wraps or sushi or salads or avocado toast. So I know they're excited to get open, and he should be at the farmer's market again this year. He sells guacamole at the farmer's market, so it's kind of a cool story there, seeing someone from the farmer's market who's really got a passion for what he does, then kind of find a brick and mortar place in town. So looking forward to that stuff coming this spring. I think that's it, but if you
How
guys
about
have
Harlem
any
Avenue?
questions, I'm always here.
How about Harlem Avenue?
Oh, yeah, well, that's important too. Yeah, Brixmore, the Tinley Plaza, which is on the east side of Harlem Avenue, that's well under construction, so Burlington's gonna be moving into there, into a new space, and then there'll be a new grocer moving into that spot as well. So the demos, I believe, complete or near complete to that, and they'll be doing the foundation and the building relatively soon, as well as kind of some of the site and parking lot changes. So that's not only a new building portion that'll be going in there, they're also redoing all the facade going north as well and giving it a nice new modern look. So that's exciting to see that center. I know it's kind of been the eyesore a lot of people pointed to with the vacancies that were in there, and some of that was planned with trying to get a bigger project like this in mind, so we're excited to see that move forward. And then Pete's owns the Kmart building, and hopefully that will move forward relatively soon. Right now, they're using the Kmart building for their warehouse distribution center, but they will be moving forward here shortly with the full Pete's Fresh Market, kind of a new build store that'll happen on the west side of that property. So we're excited for both those developments out there to kind of liven that up and get rid of some of the vacancy that's out there.
I have something to add. January 28th, the ZBA meeting will be canceled, so you won't have to have a
Okay.
meeting that night.
Okay, did y'all get that? No meeting on the 28th of January. All right, commissioners, do any or all of you have any comments for good of the order? Commissioner Pastrick?
This is Commissioner Truxell. I had one question.
Sure.
And the documentation for the variation tonight, page 4 of 6, variation request section, there's confliction with 6-foot-tall cedar privacy fence in the first paragraph. And then in the second paragraph, last sentence, the petitioner plans to use PVC material for the fence. I'm not sure if that's something you guys need to correct, but just something that I caught.
Sure.
That's my only
Thanks.
comment
Yeah,
for the night.
we'll fix it before it goes to board. So it is wood, because I think there was some discussion on that. So in the end, it settled on wood. But yes, I'll make sure to correct that. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. That was it for me.
All right.
Otherwise, it
Anybody
was interesting. The documentation was great. I appreciate having that in advance. I did read through it, and actually made it pretty easy to follow along. So nice job, guys.
Sure. In all the towns I've worked for, these are probably the most detailed staff reports I've ever seen. So it's almost too much reading sometimes, I know, but we try and add in visuals and stuff to make it you can kind of follow along what's happening, because sometimes it gets a little technical. Sometimes there's more exciting stuff and more stuff on the agenda, but the corner fences are a regular staple too. So.
Okay.
Thanks.
No, nice job. I appreciate all the detail. Thank you.
Thanks.
This is Tinley Park. We clearly go above and beyond. Anybody else have anything for the good of the order or any points of discussion? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Bettenhausen, so moved to adjourn.
Commissioner Poshchek, second.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Bentenhausen, seconded by Commissioner Paschek. We'll take a voice vote. Is anyone opposed to adjourning? Hearing nothing, the meeting is adjourned. Again, welcome to our two new commissioners, and we'll hopefully hear a lot more from you in the future.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Have a good night.